Good afternoon, LinkedIn friends, Value First Nation. Welcome to another edition, a new series, Value First Platform with Bill Barlas, our favorite platform guy. How you doing, man?
I'm well, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing good. Last week we were gonna do some content. We try to get together on Wednesday afternoons, just to chat about stuff and hopefully share some stuff. But we got into this deep conversation about data readiness, product data readiness specifically, about how we're kind of tired of seeing nobody ready with their data, and thought it was time to like dig into Value First Platform, because it is all about um, creating, empowering, enabling your team, like your people, your process, and your data, like to be consumable, to be easy, to be everything that it hasn't been, right? Um, and luckily, it relates so well that I get to make this announcement. Um, uh, Bill is also participating in the first ever Value First Data Summit, which we're doing for free on August 28th, week before Inbound. Um, and we got some awesome, uh, you know, HubSpot experts joining the fray, all all raising their hand to say, "Hey, can we maybe deal with this data problem? Like, can we help some people clean up their portals and maybe stop joking around as much about how every single HubSpot portal we get into is unclean and unmanageable, and we're just gonna accept it because it's not working out so well when you try to leverage AI based on that kind of context. So I love that we're digging into this topic today, Bill, and very excited for this month leading up to the excitement of Inbound, obviously, but this is going to be a really fun event. As we dive in today, um, we're going to start this series like I'm doing with some others. We're going through the seven commitments. I decided it was a good idea not to try and recreate the wheel every time I do some content with somebody. And we're going to go through this first principle, this first commitment in Value First Platform, and then we're going to dig in. Uh, and then next week we'll go through number two, etc. But this week we're talking about number one, which is we will build liberating environments, not controlling systems. Don't worry, I will help it make sense. Uh, we believe technology should expand possibilities rather than limit them through artificial constraints. We commit to creating platforms that remove barriers to natural collaboration while providing appropriate structure through intelligent guidance rather than rigid restriction. This means we will design systems that adapt to natural human workflow patterns rather than enforcing predetermined processes. We will create flexible guardrails that guide decision making rather than restricting creative problem solving through approval requirements. We will measure success by collaborative value creation rather than system compliance rates. We will build infrastructure that grows capabilities rather than enforcing limitations through process control. And we will focus on supporting natural cross functional teamwork rather than managing departmental boundaries. Uh, is this too much of a utopian view, Bill? Is this unreachable? It feels like it is most of the time I'm talking to people about what it would take to achieve this.
Chris, I really don't think it is. Um, as consumers, as people that live our normal lives, uh, we experience excellent interactions with companies, with people providing services to us all the time. Why not in B2B? We absolutely can get there. It exists. So let's build it.
Maybe we should start with why not? Why do you think what is it so challenging to, especially that last one? Like pretty common sense to say we want cross-functional teams to work together. Yet every year we see at the next inbound, next show, it's like how to get marketing and sales alignment, like how to handle sales and service handoffs. 20 years in to SaaS, 25 years in, we're still dealing with these problems. Why is it such of a challenge based on your experience?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of it is a organizational problem. So we have empire building inside of organizations, and groups of people, in the executive leadership level who are sort of out for personal benefit potentially rather than for the benefit of the team, and they want to build something. You'll also sometimes see silos for reasons that are more, somebody's got a job to do and maybe they don't have time to mess around with your software testing.
Yeah. I mean, so many of our KPIs, right, are counter to each other, but that's sort of like, I remember coming in from manufacturing thinking like there's a whole wide world trying to get through of consulting, inbound marketing makes sense, like story brand, they ask you answer, all this stuff is making sense. Why is it not getting through? Like, and then I come over into consulting, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is your manufacturing page is the SaaS page, like labeled as manufacturing. And that's the stuff they don't have time for. I mean, we're dealing with smart leaders that have done a masterful job. And kind of what we're going to talk about today is like product data as like kind of a bridge between the two worlds. And its importance to like enable some of these boundaries, but the importance of mindset, right? Like we literally building a liberating environment versus a controlling system. Like most of the time, especially with CPQ, at least I've seen, like we're implementing that to manage margin and like risk, like we're managing risk. ERPs get brought in to manage inventory and all these internal things. And it's like we need to control it when it's that internal perspective. And
Yeah,
it's the opposite of liberating environments, right?
Yeah, there's also some kind of old management thinking, or not old. I think it's still very current, but where at the top level of an organization, they almost introduce that friction. They'll give two teams competing priorities, and they're expecting them to figure out a way to make it successful, while sort of experiencing that rub between the two. And I think that way of thinking, as you've said, we could adjust it and think more, how can we cohesively get this done together? And you'll have better results. So,
yeah,
it's a way of thinking where, you're always thinking, what's the most I can do with the least, right? And it creates this sort of friction and rub between groups, both of them trying to achieve something that might not be totally aligned. So,
yeah. And I think that now we're not saying liberating environment. That doesn't mean like go and quote however you feel like, just get the sale or just deliver the product and whatever means necessary. Like that's not what we're talking about here. Like this, guardrails, like and training and enablement. One of my favorite examples is always going to be right? Because it feels like it's liberating to have this process of quoting where it's like, oh, I can just have a Word doc and a spreadsheet and email. Like I don't have to systematize any of it. That's how I get. But then you got to hire somebody and train them, and they're not in your inbox, and they don't have 20 years experience, and they got to shadow you for 6 months, like to have any hope of mimicking and being successful with your process. And I remember as a journeyman sales dude, like saying to me after we had just brought CPQ into HubSpot, and it's like young dude added to the team. In 2 weeks, he was doing quotes by himself, complex products here. Yeah. And it was like, you could see the disconnect. I was like, man, this guy really gets it. He's really learning fast. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of like, even though CPQ, especially CPQ, like configure price quote, seems like so, like it's all about control and rules. It's business rules engine. I feel like that's your favorite phrase sometimes when you're talking to me.
Yeah.
But it's about creating that space for the new person to come in and just crush like right away. Like instead of, hey, I did this. Can you check it for me? Like,
exactly.
I think that's even as I'm talking about this out loud, it's like, how do we make liberating make sense? Like at which point is liberating? Because you've got to, without this underlying frameworks, which I think is where we're going with the product data conversation, right? It's not about hard coding every instance of a product. It's about creating rules that make sense to enable the team to work in a way that's they don't have to translate everything for the customer at the same time too, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, really what it is that information should follow the work, right? So you shouldn't have to go on a reconnaissance mission to understand, can I quote this? What am I quoting? Or as a person developing content for an organization, the information should be readily available to you. So you don't have to go and track down an engineer to explain it, or, so I hear a lot about, oh, I wish I could get my SMEs engaged. But if you're a data ready organization, the SMEs have already provided the guidance in the form of clean, strong data.
Yeah. And I love the example that you said you wanted to share. So you can dig into that whenever.
Yeah.
But really the power of the outcomes, right? When you are truly data ready, like especially now with AI, but you haven't always needed that. It just took time and effort to understand design of the system.
Yeah.
Like to structure. And something you were mentioning last week was like true building and true value can be created. It's almost always at the end of like getting the data pipeline in place.
Yes, exactly. Right? It's at the end of the pipe. That's where the value can be created. Exactly. Absolutely. Right?
Yet we always want to start like after that.
Yes, right? We do. Yes, we do. So we talked about, before we started streaming, we were talking about an example of an organization or a company that really nails their product data. And it's, I'm going to share my screen here, but maybe an unlikely example for some, but it's Sherwin-Williams.
We need a break from the Amazon example sometimes.
Yeah, I was thinking about consumer brands today on my walk over to the farmer's market to pick up some donuts, and I was like, what's a consumer brand that really has their product data ready to go? And I think these guys are sort of a prime example. I mean, my wife and I painted squares on our living room wall recently, and we had a heck of a time doing it. We made this and we got to pick out the color and do all that stuff, and it was just sort of a, cute, fun thing. And so, as consumers of the Sherwin-Williams product, you can kind of start to see where their product data really drives every experience that you have. So, if I pick interior paint here, I'm starting to see all of these different products, right? And inside the products, I've got a lot of information that helps me make the appropriate determination. So, if I pick the duration home interior paint and click learn more, this is an extremely rich product information rich experience, right? So it explains what does duration do that's different from a different paint, right? How does it work? Things like that. And then, as I'm making changes to the site, it's actually literally it's changing the thumbnails, telling me good data about the product, right? And as a consumer that's doing a little DIY project or doing something for fun, right? I can grab the color tools, it'll tell me, which way to paint something, right? What color, it'll tell me what everything in West Elm was painted, right? Give me some samples, things like that, right? And this is a great example of how having solid product data really can change the experience, right?
Right.
Although that's true, the other thing, so they make nice labels and colors for everything, right? So they'll say, oh, this color is snowbound or this is agreeable gray, but if you look closely, you'll also notice that there's a skew in there, right? So I also have a duplex where I needed somebody to go paint a hallway for me recently, right? And so I think it's here. I think I can just type in 7104 in here. Maybe this is it. And it pulls up cotton white as the color, right? And I already know that the skew I need, because that hallway is already 7104, but somebody ran a couch into it, so it needs to be painted again, right? So I already know this, so I've got the information that I need, so I can just click to buy and just go, right? So what this really is doing, though, is it's both a contractor who's got a skew, they know what they need to do, what they need to buy, they go in and do it. Or, when my wife and I are having fun doing an accent wall, we can do that as well. And both experiences are made readily apparent and easy to do. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's, and again, this is sort of like this weird, it's between B2B and B2C, right? They serve both types of customers. It also turns out that Sherwin-Williams supplies like automotive paint and aerospace paint and this whole thing. They're actually kind of a cool company. I had no idea. I've been on the Wikipedia today, but anyway, the point is that, having your product data ready, this is what that really looks like. See what I mean, Chris?
Right.
So, and what this is also is it's enrichment of the data. So,
Right.
you have, here's all the semi-gloss paints or paints that are available with semi-gloss sheen, right? Here's the ones that you can do in satin, right? This whole user experience it's not driven by a sweet e-commerce site, although this is kind of a sweet e-commerce site. It's really driven by having the data created, available, and in a clean format, so that when it comes to doing an e-commerce site or a quotation or, building any kind of content, the information's there, right?
Yeah. So if you're on B2B and you're like, Bill, this is Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, whatever company, B2C, they've obviously probably spent millions of dollars on this e-commerce site, and of course it's going to look better. But I'm in B2B, and like I either think it's going to cost me $1 million to do something similar, or I don't necessarily need to have this experience in place for my sales team or the customer? Like, how do you have that conversation where it's, first of all, it's not nearly as hard. Like, it's not about the building, like we said. Like, our whole point here is you get the data right. Stuff like this is getting more and more affordable by the day,
Yes.
like with the use of AI, to
Mhm.
be able to provide these experiences, at least internally, like for your own team, so that they don't have to go through spreadsheets and click through a bunch of pages inside of an ERP or a CRM or CPQ. And like at some
Exactly.
point, they're having to do it anyways, which
Yeah.
is why they don't understand the need for the system. If this is not working flawlessly,
Exactly.
like, you're not going to get the usage. So how do you help people go from a place of, let's say, data unreadiness to data readiness?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my opinion, it's start with the story, not with the skew. So, you know, it's maybe it is pulling a spreadsheet together to start with, but clear product descriptions that so when you do write a quote or when you do put a product out on an e-commerce site or something like that, you have a really nice human accessible description. For example, getting your thumbnails and your product images put together in a solid way. And honestly, HubSpot has a really great product module, and so loading a product in that is tagged with all of these great attributes is a really nice place to start, and it opens up tons of really great capabilities because now you have access to that in Content Hub. Now you have access to it when you're quoting. So that the various touch points that you have with your customer, the data is there, ready, clean, and available at the time. So
You were showing me something last week where it's like, so often, and this is like with almost all customer data, right? So many data situations we're focused on the data we don't have versus the data we already have access to. And you're showing me something where, like, yeah, the data already exists. It's just not in the right spot. Like, we're not bringing it over
Mhm.
to the right places. And this is where the source of truth conversation like drives me crazy,
Yeah,
because we excuse ourselves of putting it in those other places because, oh, it's not the source of truth and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
When in reality, like, value first platform and kind of building it from a systems perspective, it is one platform for the business. It could have 10 software apps in it, it could have one, right? It needs to be the source of truth, this system, for whichever user, internal or external, is
yeah,
using the system in that moment, right? And so what I find is, as soon as you give people permission to put data like in more than one spot, right? Then you start to solve the problem. It's not about where it should and shouldn't be. It's like, how do we get it there and how do we maintain it, right? So that it's not like what we're all used to is separate spreadsheets and versioning and like, oh, that's why we need the source of truth in the first place. Why would we do that here? Now we have so many tools in place to, set up syncing properly and all these things. So like, how
yeah.
do you take people down that road, or like that conversation to solve for these data gaps, where just because it's in the system over here doesn't mean your team is enabled?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I was alluding to last week, and it it relates to this, is you're looking for the end of the pipe where the data is spewing out, right? So I think the example I was talking about last week was a professional services company, and they've got this great CPQ solution, and they want to use AI. And as somebody that works intimately with their solution daily, I know where the end of the pipe is, where everything is spitting out. That's where you can kind of apply AI, right? Because they've already gathered and enriched tons and tons of data, right? Um, I what I'll actually say though is I think a lot of companies are not really quite yet getting to the point where they realize that going through and making great product descriptions, great descriptions of, you know, how a project will be put together, things like that. That's really what I'm pushing for. So, you know, I think that right now it's super fragmented, and we need to, you know, be strategic and then go through and actually spend the time. And, you know, AI can help with that to, you know, make tag data with proper attributes, right? With proper metadata. So, you know, what colors of paint are available in this type and sheen? You know, we need to actually do that. And then once that's done, um, the sky's the limit with what we can do with it. So that's sort of what I'm thinking.
I'm interested in this second bullet that I read off, which is create flexible guardrails that guide decision making rather than restricting creative problem solving through approval requirements. Like, are there any surefire ways to say, like, this rule is going to enable versus restrict?
Yeah, that's a really, there's this concept in lean manufacturing of a Gemba walk. Have you ever heard of this?
I don't think so.
Okay. It means going to the source and looking at it. So you're not allowed to sit in the office. You have to actually go out on the floor and watch what's happening. And I think you're supposed to do it every day. So it's like when you're running a plant, you're supposed to walk out there and look at what's going on and determine, is this really how we want this to be running or not? I think that software solutions need a lot more Gemba walks. How to know if something's going to be restrictive or useful, you got to ask somebody, right? Don't guess. Take a walk with them, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, how that forms up in a digital work environment where you might not be physically sitting right next to somebody is, you know, expert user groups. It's asking people, can I shadow you for a couple hours as you do your job, right? Those things combined with the idea of data enrichment and what we're talking about here, that's how you get the answers to your questions. It's go out and interview your users, talk to them, see how they actually are doing things, right? Because right now, you know, like if you talk about CRM, for example, like deal management, you might be getting a story from the data, right? That's a revenue story, but you don't actually know how those deals are being closed. So spending some time with the people that are actually using the tools and systems, understanding how they're doing things, that is one of the most beneficial ways that you can avoid, you know, sort of locking people down unnecessarily, where they should maybe have a little bit more freedom or where they need more guidance, where that guidance really won't feel so restrictive.
Yeah. Man, this aligns so much with what I was talking about with Tony earlier today, like control versus enablement. And like, even if you don't know how, like, to create this space without like hard and fast rules, because that's the way you learned it, I think this is where it's all mindset in terms of, we have AI friends now that can make it really objective in terms of just pulling out like the personal tones that we can take when we're trying to coach, you know, each other. And if we're recording every call, we can ask it more like nuanced questions like this, right? Like, which point, instead of just sentiment analysis, right? Or what could we have said to close them like faster? Like there's got to be so much product decision making that happens like underneath the surface where if we would have, shared these options at this point instead of this other point, maybe we didn't even need to go into the options. Maybe we're trying to option them to death way too fast.
Mhm.
And that's making us think we need this whole slate of options available at all times when really they told us at the beginning of the call, this is my problem. And this is the problem that I think this is the product that I think is going to be right for me. And we can sometimes think that we're helping by saying, well, let's take a step back and let's go through all the options.
Nope.
And like, right. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to like, but it's a dramatic change of what I've heard of people like utilizing these call recordings for, right? And again, I think this is the power of if we make a North Star of product data readiness and just data readiness, it starts to simplify. Because if you can get there, man, you don't need to ask a bunch of the other questions about how to close faster. And if you do, you're doing it on a foundation of truth
Mhm.
instead of subjectivity,
Yeah.
right? Oh
Yeah.
man, why did it take us so long to start this series, Bill?
I don't
This
know,
is
man.
such an exciting topic. So how else are we helping folks with product data readiness? What's working for you in terms of like getting true understanding of the situation that people are in and why this is
Mhm.
so important?
Yeah. I I am not using AI to query sales conversations yet. I think that's a pretty new idea. Um, what I'm doing instead right now is talking to sales teams about, you know, are these tools making you more successful or not? Is there a lot of red tape that you have to go through to get something done? Or is it actually useful to you? Um, that's really where I'm sitting. Um, and there's also sort of a simple set of tenets around what you what you provide and when, right? So there's a surface level of information that you should be giving right away. So we talked about it a lot. Clear product descriptions, things like that, so that you can make sort of a quick decision on something if you need to. But then there's also more detailed levels of information that you should be sort of making available if somebody needs it, right? So this is more technical information. So I'm going to pull up a paint can again. Don't judge me. I just love how these guys did this, guys and girls. Here's my super paint interior acrylic. Here's my top level, right?
Yep.
Here's my product detail with the product literature in it, right? So I'm going a little bit deeper now, right? So this is enriched a little bit. But then I also have specifications if I need those. So, if you need safety information for a specification for, an 80 unit apartment building that you're going to be doing the painting for, here's all that information, right?
Yep.
So, it's not that it's not necessary, but you just need to know where and when to give it properly, right?
Yeah. Well,
So,
it's not until it is,
correct,
right? And I
correct.
don't want to have to call and email people,
Mhm.
right, to get this information.
Exactly. So it's asking your customer service team, what are people asking for all the time? There must be a reason why Sherwin-Williams is posting a safety data sheet for this paint. There has to be, right? It's got to come up all the time, right? I don't personally know why, but there's got to be a reason, right?
Yeah.
And so putting all of that stuff in getting it out on your website or getting it into, having links to it on your quote, things like that. but only in a way where it's actually helpful, right? So
Yeah.
it's just hiding in the background until you might actually need it, right?
Yeah.
That is
It's
the
it's accessible when it needs to be,
Mhm.
and not cluttering the space when people don't need it,
Yeah.
right?
So yeah.
Because what's fun now is you can create similar experiences like this inside of a HubSpot record,
Yes.
right? And that's where obviously, we traffic in the HubSpot space. It's not the only system that can do stuff like this clearly, but can pretty much guarantee it's the most affordable and easiest to maintain in terms of reaching this level of complex information management.
Yeah.
Like, because it truly is, if you can put the data on a record inside the CRM, you can display it on a web page,
Exactly.
very easily, all the way down to all of our new file properties. This is why people like us get excited about file properties,
Exactly.
right? Because we know there's a whole world out there that still likes PDFs and printouts and
Mhm.
stuff like this. But safety data sheets are a good example. Like, so many people, it's not that they want it, it's just that their process like demands that it's got to be included in the thing. And if they can't access it easily, it could be the difference between selling your product and not, because um it's not optional, for their process. And the more and more accessible it gets from competitors and from the market, like the quicker you are to lose business and never know why,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. So that's what I'm shouting right now is enrich your data as much as you can, and your team will tell you what they need, what information would be helpful to have, and then go into HubSpot and put it there. That's really my thought on it. You know,
Yeah.
um, so I was talking to Madeline Donovan about this same exact thing today, and she said she doesn't like throwing away manuals for things, and her husband said you can throw it out because the manual is available online always. Um, that's true for your iPad, right? But why isn't it true for the piece of manufacturing equipment that you just bought?
Yes.
We can make it there. We can get there
Yeah.
with
Right.
data enrichment, with product data readiness.
Yeah. And as we think of, this is where it's like when you can open your mind to HubSpot as a full platform
Mhm.
like this, when you can, like, there is so much gold inside of manuals for like knowledge base articles and marketing. Like, it's crazy and unfortunate to see the amount of work that will go into some really nice looking diagrams in a user manual that never see the website ever.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man. um and now that we can talk about, marketing, content, sales, service, ops hub, and commerce hub, it's okay to have the whole journey like inside of HubSpot. It doesn't mean it's replacing every system that's doing like product lifecycle management and inventory management and even like SDS systems like that help you maintain those compliance,
Mhm.
documentation. We're not saying to replace all of that. We're saying you can bring it into HubSpot now and make it easier to communicate with your team.
Exactly.
And that makes it easier for them to communicate with customers and the system to start to be able to help you. And by the end of this year, I think it's going to be hard to avoid the impact of AI having access and being able to successfully leverage unstructured data and just see files in the system, PDFs, documentation, like bringing in real time.
Mhm.
Like, there's already software that can do that. It's just about like how we're bringing it together now. And it's just a really powerful thing. That's where like most of data readiness is not creating new pipelines, right? It's taking the ones you have and figuring out how to configure them, in an aligned way. And that's where your team like will tell you exactly how that needs to go.
Exactly.
Like if you let them. So definitely don't sleep on their knowledge. And if you hear the buzzwords of context engineering, that's a lot of what we're talking about here, right? Just bringing the context of the business into one place and making it consumable and ready for users, for customers, for AI, for business leaders, even, right? To just I'll end on this. Like one of my favorite things about creating unified customer views through portals and then having it right next to like websites with good product pages and things like that. When like internal teams that are not in marketing and sales or product, like people from the operations, the production floor, shipping, when they can come up and say, I've always wanted to know like what we do and who we do it for. Like they naturally learn because the information is consumable and it's available. Like, man, now we're talking like second and third orders of magnitude of value in terms of just training and enablement becomes possible. Not only possible, it just like naturally moves forward.
Exactly.
And it's just all from just taking a moment to say, like, how do we make this stuff more accessible?
Exactly. Right? So pull your spreadsheet out with your SKUs in it and start tagging it with that good stuff that you all know. And
if you need help
into HubSpot,
like give it to your team, teach them how to use AI to help. Breeze is becoming very powerful inside of HubSpot. The Ops Hub of HubSpot also becoming very, very powerful in terms of being able to bring all your data, all of it. Like we'll find a way to get it in here and make it contextual. Yeah, I like that line, Bill. I think we need a bumper sticker that's like value first platform. Start with the story, not with the SKU.
Exactly.
So I'm excited for this series. And don't forget, folks, if you found this valuable, we're doing this all day on August 28th, right before inbound. I think this is the one thing you can control as your data situation as we reach into this future of AI first. We're about to see what that really means in HubSpot land. And if you don't get your data right, it's gonna be a bumpy ride for you. And we very much want to help you not have a bumpy ride. So join us on August 28th with the Value First Data Summit. And until next week, Bill, where we're on to round 2, and what is principle number 2? We will connect naturally, not force. Artificial integration. iPass, anyone?
Here we go.
All right. Everybody have a great week. Thanks so much, Bill.
Thank you.